The 21st day of August 2022. This is Parasitic Losses on Wind Farms, video 47E. Video 47E, number 47E. We've had some rain here in Ireland, which did a lot of good. There was a bad need by farmers and that for rain, and particularly down in the south. We got a bit of thunder here, didn't get that down the south so much. And the bit of rain did a lot of good. Some farmers would say we need a lot more, but today is a gorgeous warm day. The only thing you have to remember out and about is it gets dark earlier now. But it's absolutely lovely. The only thing that's blinding me a little here, and please understand, the sun is just beaming down from over there, as you can see. So how much are wind turbines using, and what are the implications? Okay, now, so you need to go and check on Google. There's several sources, but this is the simplest one I got now. Wind turbines parasitic losses. Wind turbines parasitic losses. You'll get it there on Google, on the search engines on Google and that. And he's a fellow called JC Engineer that quantifies it. There have been several, and the results have always been between 10 and 20%. And I think it depends on circumstances. But in any event, I have noticed that on a day like today, you can see there, I think, if I'm not in your way, do you see the wind turbine there? There's two there in that. I think you can see them there. And both of those are stopped. Now, I've noticed that about 1/3 of the time, a motor comes on in them, facing them to the breeze. And that motor has to be 20 kilowatts. It has to be a strong three-phase motor. And sometimes it's whining almost constantly. It's almost as if it was crying to get wind. Somebody must be continually adjusting it. But they're producing nothing just at the minute, as it turns out. So see the list in the case of on that website, and it gives you what the power is used for. It's used for moving it around to face the wind. It's using to start it up. They use the motor, the generator that's in them as a motor to get them started. It's used to adjust the blades, to feather the blades to and from the wind, into the wind, the angle like that, you know. And it's used for aviation lighting. It's used for onboard computers. It's used for lighting at the main station. It's used for all kinds of things. As I said, I think I said computers. It has a lot of uses, and he gives it all there. And one other use is that the oil in those, it's not a roller bearing. It's a bearing like a shell bearing that's in the engine of a lorry or a car. There it's now whining. The one number 5 is now going whining. Will you see? Stop. Still at it. Still at it. Still at it. Still whining. Still at it. Still at it. We'll talk on. I'll tell you when it stops. But that shows you the consistency, and that's only one turbine. Now, they're drawing power, there's no doubt. And an engineer told me the time of the big freeze-up in 2010, the meter runs backwards and forwards in some of them. I don't know did it charge them for it all, but in some of them it did. It runs forward and backwards, and the meter was running in reverse, and they had to pay. They were docked money for the power used. Now, it's very hard to find out if that rule is applied or if it's all swept under the carpet and loaded on the consumer. Now, it's still running there, and you can see if you can see there, the one on the extreme right, it's turning. See, they're turning. So there's some weather station sending them details of weather, wind conditions, and they're adjusting round. So it's running there. Still going. I think it may have stopped now. But anyway, we'll move on. Now, this fella puts it for a 2 megawatt wind turbine at 215 kilowatts, or 10.75% of the turbine's capacity. And that's in line with many other authorities. Somewhere around 10, 11% to maybe 15%, depending on the turbine and all of that. Now, in Ireland, we have the output of wind. We have about 3,800 megawatts of wind power. And the output of our wind turbines is a lot less than that usually. But essentially, they're using 413 megawatts. or 413,000 kilowatts domestic units. That's what Ireland's wind turbines use. That's a lot of power. That would power a lot of homes. But of course, they won't tell you that. Don't forget now, they're lying to us on all this. You know that we're being lied to. Now, one of the good examples I want to get is in Germany. They have 61,000 megawatts of industrial wind turbines, and they're facing a crunch with energy, as you know, this winter. And I've calculated that Germany's wind turbines are using and will use today, if it's the same as here when there's virtually no output, they'll use the equivalent of Irish traditional grid. The Irish traditional generating grid was about 6,500 megawatts, or 6.5 gigawatts, 6,500 megawatts, and it would take all of the traditional power. Now they've had to add extra generation capacity to the Irish grid to accommodate wind energy, because they needed fast-acting plant. But when you consider Ireland's normal demand for fossil fuel electricity generation is what would be needed to keep Germany's wind turbines from being damaged when there's no power, or even when there is. Just please understand this. They need the mains grid reliable power at all times 24/7. But if they're generating in good wind conditions, they will be pumping some energy in. And they tell us that taking one thing with another, they're a plus. I have severe doubts about that, because if today now that they know what they need, the grid knows what they need, and they're burning fuel to supply it. But if the wind picked up, and they were talking about strong winds tonight, they can't really turn off power on the hope that the wind would come in. They can't do that. So really and truly, any saving is very, very tiny. I agree. Over years of thinking about it, I've come to the conclusion, and Mr. Piers de Puer says it's 4%. I think that's very right. You save about 4% of the capacity of all your wind energy by having them. 4% is all you save when you count everything. So now the other thing is there has to be fossil fuel plant. There has to be fossil fuel plant before you can let in the wind at all. There has to be 40% of the grid fossil fuel before you can let it in. You cannot run any system on wind energy on its own. Cannot be done. I've made a video on that. Cannot be done. So you can only use it as a sort of a weightlifter or some type of an add-on to your existing fossil fuel. And this winter in Europe is going to test that big time. But they're determined never to admit they got it wrong. And as you know, they have never assessed it under Article 3.2 of the Strategic Environmental Assessment. They've never assessed what its contribution is, because they don't even know, they don't have a clue. It's all based on a wing and a prayer and happy signalling and optics and all that sort of stuff. At the very minute in Ireland, we have 3,800 megawatts of wind energy, but we never got any more than 3,600 from it. And at the moment, it's only given 72. That's Sunday evening, the 21st of August, 2022. We're only getting 72, which is nothing. Meanwhile, we're using 360. Based on my calculations, we're using 360 megawatts. That's 1,000 units, 360,000 units. Most houses would now run on about 1 unit, 2 units. So you can imagine how many thousand homes we could be fueling, and how much fuel we wouldn't have to burn if we didn't have the wind turbines. Just look at it like that. So if you take the little contribution of the 72 megawatts away from what they're using, 362, you get a net loss of 288,000 megawatts of electricity. And you can figure it out yourself. The average household uses 5,000 watt hours in a year. So the big question, folks, is what have you left when you actually run your wind turbines for a year? And this is a very hot subject. It's political, but the politics is coming to an abrupt end, because they shut the engineers out, and now we have the situation where the Russians are cutting off the fuel, and whether it comes on again or not, I don't know. But the thing is, he's able to play hide and seek with them, because they're beginning to realise the hard way, that they cannot do without fossil fuel and or nuclear fuel, or the two. They cannot rely on wind turbines. It's difficult, it's a complicated subject, but still I think where any of this is put up, I will post it on their YouTube channels and give this video on it. The first thing to remember is industrial wind farms use every hour of every day, of every minute and second of every hour, 11% to 20% of their nameplate capacity in parasitic power for various uses. The second thing is, when the wind is blowing to a certain high degree, and it takes a lot of wind to get them going right to produce something, they are pumping in more into the grid than they're getting out. But it's agreed that the very best input is 20% and less. So 20% of the time they're given 20% of the capacity over a year. But this withdrawal is every hour of every day. Now, it would be a bit too much for me to say I have it all worked out. I just have to try and make a video here and get it through. But please try and tell your friends and everything else the lies that's been told. Number one, you cannot use industrial wind energy on its own. It cannot be done. It must have fossil fuel of about 40% running hot in the background before you can let in the wind energy. Okay, if there's no wind energy, you have to provide fossil fuel energy to the wind turbines of at least 10.75 or 11%, we'll say 11% to about 20%, possibly is about 14%, has to be pumped into them. If there's a huge scarcity with blackouts, how are you going to work your blackouts in the zones? If there's wind turbines there and the weather's bad and you cut the power from them, you could have destroyed them forever. So they'll have to keep the power going into them, so they'll have to get priority. So in Germany, wind energy will be getting priority over homes and over factories. That's the hard fact of it. They're shutting down the lights on buildings and all that, and display lighting and all that in Germany, and that'll probably come here. We have no storage of gas at all, no storage of gas in Ireland. We're at the end of a long pipeline and we have no storage of gas. That'll show you the people that are running our country. So I think now you understand that. That is very important. I've repeated that so many times, and most people don't believe me. They think I'm wrong. They think that their government would not lie to them, would not tell them lies. All I can do here is use this forum to tell the truth. These wind turbines currently are 12 megawatts. It's taken about 1.2 megawatts in electrical energy from the grid, coming in through the grid, coming down to Kilnalund Power Station and out the road on the ground to keep those things going. And we've seen them buzzing there a while ago. And it's taking that now, and it's taken all this in Ireland. It's taken 288 megawatts, or 288,000 domestic units at the moment. So in 1 hour, at the moment, this hour, from I started speaking, if you went an hour, we'll have 288,000 units in 1 hour used by Ireland's wind turbines. Ireland's wind turbines. A home at the moment, they're probably not cooking, would be consuming maybe 1 kilowatt hour. So you have 288,000 homes to power these. So what they give back, that's for another day, folks. But they cannot be used without fossil fuel. You can have the grid system with fossil fuel powering the country, with the wind turbines off or on, but you can't have the wind turbines powering the country with the fossil fuel grid system not on. You can have it one way, but you can't have it the other way. And I respectfully say to you, these things are the biggest scam ever to be thought up, and it's corruption that they're here. And we have resignations from Board Planola, and the papers is full of blackout information, and the planning board in Ireland being corrupt and all of that. And these wouldn't be here if the planning board had to respect the inspector's decision, who came out and looked at them and said they should not go here. But that's for another day. So if that helps now on about 14 minutes, if that helps people, and I hope I'll be able to get this in front of people in Germany and the United States and Britain and France, Get that through your skulls. Get that into your head. Even have to shout it. Get it into your head. These wind turbines cannot be used alone. They can only be used as an adjunct or an add-on to fossil fuel, of which there must be 40% of the system before you let any of that in. And when they're not operating, they have to draw power, which is equal in the case of Germany's wind farms to the total power generated on average and available in Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland at a time. So how many power stations does it take to run Ireland? It takes a good few, and that's in Germany has to be provided. Where are they going to get the gas for it? Where are they going to get the coal? Or where are they going to get the oil? Well, we'll soon see. If this winter turns out as it's predicted, I don't really hope it does, but if it does, will they admit they got it wrong? And the answer is never. They will never, ever, ever admit they were made idiots of. And Vladimir Putin has said this 100,000 times, and they wouldn't listen to him. And he now realizes that in Napoleonic times, Russia beat Napoleon with their weather, with their winter. In Hitler's times, in the Second World War, the Russians beat the Germans with their weather, their winter weather. And have they learned anything? Absolutely not. And now he's doing it the third time. Third time lucky. It's not third time lucky. It's three in a row. Three in a row. Napoleon, the Second World War, and the first, and now the Crimean War. He's going to use the very same thing, the cold, to cripple Europe. That's his idea. I think they'll capitulate. I think they'll try and settle it. I think they will try and settle it. But I'm only putting it the facts. This is the third time Europe is going to be cruelly crucified by the Russians over the winter. And they're whinging, he's using fuel, he's using the weather, he's using all this. And they have these things up to change the weather, don't forget. He's using all this. He's in a war. And as to say, all is fair in love and war. Folks, that's it. Give me a thumbs up and give me a thumbs down. And we'll see you back for something else as soon as we can. Good luck and bye-bye. Thank you.